Hey everyone, it's Shaylin and I'm here today with another writing video. Today I wanted to make a video on the topic that is, I would probably say without a doubt, my most frequently asked question. For a while it was also the question I was most frustrated to get because it was so frequently asked, but I really didn't have an answer. You know, like people kept asking me and I was like, oh, guys, like if I knew, life would be so easy, but I really don't have an answer for this. And it's how do I generate plot material or develop my idea? For some writers, this is very naturally easy. They get an idea and the plot material, like everything that will happen in the plot is kind of just there. For me, I'm more of a character slash mood slash emotion slash image based writer, less than like that's kind of what fuels me more so than plot. Like obviously plot's important. I'm not saying I don't care about plot, and you know, the plot is important to me, but it takes me a long time to uncover since it's not usually where my brain starts. And the fact that this is my most frequently asked question to me is a sign that this is really, really hard for a lot of people. I do have some tips for you. This is going to be my best shot at answering this question, but by no means is there a magic formula. I really wish there was, that would be awesome, but there isn't one. And I think a lot of people are seeking one because it's so hard, but the reason this is so hard is that there is really no magic formula that I'm aware of. It's kind of just something that requires a lot of thought and reflection and work. It will come more naturally to some writers, it will take more effort or more time for others. I don't really have a simple method for this, you know? So before I get into the tips, I want to make it clear that if you are struggling with developing your plot, 90% of it, in my opinion, is just thinking. You know, it can take a long time for ideas to fully marinate in your mind. Like, they need time. And so for some writers, they need less time, and for others, they need more. So if you're really struggling and you feel like it's just not there, this isn't an instant overnight thing for most people. It's not just gonna be there, the entire plot of a novel. You know, probably 100 plus scenes that you will need won't just appear magically in your mind overnight. It's gonna take work and it's gonna take time. So if you feel like this isn't working for you, but the idea is really fresh, first of all, give it time. First of all, allow it time to just ruminate in your brain. I think in most cases, that will generate quite a lot for you. However, that said, I do have some tips that can be helpful, but by no means is this the easy way to creating a plot, because there really isn't an easy way. Unless you write like very formulaic stuff. Study story structure. Now, in my opinion, studying story structure and different story structures, so like the hero's journey, there's like 27 chapter, I personally like 15 beat, it makes a lot of sense to me, but use whatever one you like, is one of the most helpful things you can do to help develop content. Now, one of the main criticisms of these kinds of story structures is they just lead to formulaic writing. I don't really find that, because most stories naturally, even without using these, will just fall into place. We all kind of have understanding of story structure because we consume so many stories, and for that reason stories generally fall into this path. Even ones that are kind of unconventionally structured will often fit these molds pretty closely. The molds are actually pretty vague, like 15 beats. That's not a lot of things to happen in a single novel. Like, a novel has over 100 scenes in most cases. So it's not like you're gonna just automatically write super formulaic books because you understand these structures. Like I said, I like 15 beat the most because it's what I was taught. You know, like I have a bit of a screenwriting background, so that's what I was taught in screenwriting classes. And it made sense to me. I don't actually plot out my stories each single one, like on each single beat. I'm not like, so now it's break into two, and now it's B-plot, and now it's like, I don't do that. It's just studying it gives you a more solid internal framework and understanding of what stories are and how they're paced and how they work, and that can really strengthen your understanding of building your own story, whether you actually lay it out with this plot or not. You know, you don't have to actually plot your book out beat by beat if you don't want to. It's not necessary. I don't do it. But I think it's just having that understanding of structure helps you see things that might be missing because it helps you understand the shape of a story better. So I like to see these kind of story structuring templates more as tools to help me understand structure better rather than just like templates where you have to check them all off, but studying them can help you see things that you are missing. Number 2, this is a process related one. I find it actually, it's very simple, but it really does work magic, and it's just get into your documents and start writing stuff. As much as a large part of brainstorming might just come to you while you're sitting there, actively working on your book is probably the best thing you can do. When I think of the major brainstorming breaks that I have had for my own work, most of them have happened when I was like, okay, well, I don't really know what to do with this book, so I'm just gonna name the characters, or I'm like all the side characters, and start, you know, taking notes on character profiles. And as soon as I started doing that, I was like, oh wait, this, and then this, and then this, and then this, and suddenly things are starting to happen and fit together. Getting your brain working on the story, even if it's on something relatively simple, like I said, I like to just name characters if I have characters that need naming, or otherwise just look at my document and start jotting down notes. And it's just the act of actually doing it really kind of jogs your brain. Along with that, get yourself organized. If your notes are a mess, it might be harder to see obvious gaps in the plot because you can't really see the plot. But when in doubt, like this is a good one for the last thing. If you don't know what to do, but you want to work on your book to help kind of jog your mind, just start organizing your notes. You don't even have to write anything new. Just start organizing things, and I almost guarantee you that you will probably have some sort of idea literally just by organizing stuff. I mean, maybe I shouldn't guarantee, like, no money back guarantee, you will get an idea, like, for me that usually does something. Any way you can actively engage with your story just kind of like powers up that area of your brain where the book is stored and kind of gets things working. So for example, I usually take notes in an unordered list where I just write everything. Literally as soon as I start putting things in order, it can click ideas for me. Literally, I can just move one thing. I can be like, this is gonna go there, and then I'll be like, oh, idea. The next one, you don't have to work through it linearly. Work backwards or from the inside out. You know, your book it's not just a succession of events. It's a series of events that are all interlocked and cause each other. So that means if you know the end, you can work backwards. If you know some points in the middle, you can work outwards from those points. I actually think working outwards works really well for me sometimes. If I'm writing something more structural, so not like a lit-ficky thing, but something like quite structured, early on as I can identify my inciting incident, act 1 break, midpoint, act 2 break, and the book's climax, and then work outwards from those points. Because it kind of gives you, like, you can kind of leapfrog, you know, from one point to the other. Number 5, research. Almost all books will require some level of research on some topic. You know, it might be very minimal, it might be very, very in-depth for others, but usually you probably have to research something. I find doing research that I need to do gets me a lot of ideas, especially if it's a more research-intensive book. It's not knowledge base that you have. If you have to do the research, you don't already have the knowledge. It can kind of show you things your story might need, or just give you a lot of ideas. Like, I have had so many ideas for plots and helped generate material for my plot lines and build and expand on my ideas literally just by doing the research. And also you get the research done. Number 6, work on character instead of plot. If you struggle with plot and you're more of a character-based writer like myself, sometimes you can develop your plot via your character. I find it much easier to brainstorm character stuff, I don't know, do character-related work than plot-related work. Because that's just where my brain goes. And a lot of the time, they go hand in hand, you know? So if you're struggling with plot, but you feel pretty solid on character, work more on character, and it will probably give you ideas for plot, because character informs plot, and vice versa. You can do the same if you're struggling with character, but you've got a lot of plot. Work on plot, and it will probably reveal some things about your characters. They work back and forth. They work together. So if you're struggling with one but not the other, work on the one that you actually feel like you have something solid and concrete to work with, because it will feed into the other. If you know what your character's arc is, their change, you can kind of reverse engineer a plot from that based on what's going to be needed to make them change. Talk about your story with someone. People who don't know anything about your book will ask you questions just out of curiosity that you've never even considered, because they don't have any background, they don't know anything about this book. Find someone willing to listen to you and just ask them if you can tell them about your book, and start telling them about your book. And just the act of talking about it, I find, usually gives me some ideas, helps some things click, but also they will just ask you questions you never even considered, and those questions can really help open up some possibilities. Finally, probably the most cliched, cheesy one, go back to the thing that inspires you. You know, we all have different things that inspire us. For me, music is a big one. I'm always making a playlist for different books and kind of, you know, building that mood, because I'm a very like mood and atmosphere based writer, right? So for me, music is really important to get me into the feel of my book, because my book is so based on the feel that I want it to have and capture, because that's kind of where the idea starts for me. I don't know, my ideas start from weird places. Other people start with, oh, concepts. I'm like, I start with a vague, intangible feeling. Yeah, I love it. Just kidding, I hate myself. Whatever it is that usually gets you thinking, you know, different people are inspired by different things. Don't let this go too far. If you're like, TV inspires me, instead of working on a book, what if I binge watch how many seasons of Supernatural are there, and why was Supernatural the show that my brain went to? I think it's just because there's so many seasons of it, but I've never watched it and I don't even know how many seasons there are. Anyways, go back to the thing that inspired you originally, things that remind you of your book, wherever it is that you feel kind of ignites your brain. I know for me, the outdoors like inspires me a lot. Like, I will go for the longest walks and just wander aimlessly and hopefully get some ideas. I live about a half-hour walk from my university. I treasure that walk. That hour that I walk to university, it's probably the most productive hour of my day in some ways. I mean, I'm not actually doing any work, but it's where I get the work done in here, you know? Everyone has their different means of cultivating ideas, different environments that cultivate ideas for them. For me, it's being outside, but it's different for everyone. So go back to that thing. If you don't know what it is, go see the world and, I don't know, find it. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna wrap up this video now. Now, of course, this is basically for outliners. Like, now being a pantser, I kind of just cross these bridges as I come to them rather than trying to figure out the entire thing before I start. But back when I used to outline, it would take me years to outline a book entirely. It takes a long time for me to come up with these things. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, you can always send me an ask on Tumblr, and I'll see you in another video. You can send me an ask on Tumblr as long as it's not, how do I come up with ideas for my book? And I will see you in another video. Bye!